Hey guys, welcome to Doesnt. I am Patrick. Today in studio, I have the Kason.
Hey! Off to a good start, everybody.
So today we wanted to talk about a variety of issues that have been in the news recently. The first is something that happened about 3 months ago. The
Bitcoin
Bitcoin Cash fork away from Bitcoin. Originally, like just off the news, off the cuff, my gut reaction, my knee-jerk reaction was like, who are these imposters trying to interfere in my Bitcoin profit? And I didn't really understand the totality, the dire nature of the situation Bitcoin was in, because I had just been, keeping a lot of my currency on the exchanges for a while. And if your money is not moving around between wallets, between exchanges, then a lot of the problems going on with Bitcoin right now, you don't really see or feel because you're not moving your money. You're not actually doing Bitcoin transactions. So what is the problem, Kason? The problem is that Bitcoin has hit sort of its limit in terms of how much volume, how many transactions it can do per minute or per 10-minute period. And rather than scale the technology as would any serious technology group, they have decided to just sort of let it happen and see where it goes and see what, Bitcoin sort of evolves into.
To let what happen, particularly? You say to let it happen. To let it just, completely not handle the traffic that's happening on its network?
Yeah, so without, going into an hour-long show, it's like, every 10 minutes, X number of transactions can fit onto the blockchain, and that's been full for quite some time now. And what does it mean when I say it's been full? It means that not everybody's transactions get in. It would be like if you walked into the gas station to pay for your gas and you swiped your card, and it said, oh, you might have to wait for up to 2 days to spend your money, to give your money to the gas station to buy your gas, just depending on how much you pay for the transaction to go through.
I don't want to wait for 2 days at a gas station for my transaction to go through.
So if you want your Bitcoin transaction to go through immediately, you're talking $20, just in a fee to make the transaction go through.
If I were Warren Buffett, that would not be a problem. That would be great. To send, because you can send as much as you want for that $20 flat fee, right?
Yeah, that's true. And you can send it internationally, and all the other advantages still apply.
Right. So I could send a massive amount of money for $20, but if I'm trying to pay for something, a la a coffee,
yeah, if you want to just buy a coffee, then you're talking. If you want that transaction to go through quickly, which the store would require to accept your Bitcoin, because they're not going to risk giving you the coffee and then 2 days later maybe not getting your money. Then the fee is involved, and the fees are outrageous right now because there's way more transactions than there is space available. So, for about a year, and so I basically did my research, and I got caught up on the issue. And there's a group of guys called Bitcoin Core Development Team. Core doesn't mean that it's like the guys in charge; it's just the name they've sort of given themselves. But they are sort of the ones in charge. It's really weird. So they have kind of resisted the changes needed to make Bitcoin scale. The other group of people, or another group of people, has been suggesting for over a year, trying to convince them for over a year to increase the size of, or the number of transactions that can fit in every 10-minute block. And they tried for over a year, and they failed.
Stuff like SegWit, right? And a couple of other different ideas on how to make the platform work. Those are buzzwords I've heard thrown around.
Yeah, the core team said, oh, we don't need to increase the block size or the overall raw number of transactions. We're going to implement this tweak that has a small increase immediately. And so it went from about a 1 meg block to, I think if it maxes out, like a 1.7 meg. So not a big difference in the number of transactions per 10-minute period.
That would translate into, rather than a piece of paper that can hold so many pieces of what's being transacted that's a normal 8.5 by 11, it's like now 8.5 by 14.
Yeah, so it was a slight increase that alleviated the problem for, I think, I would have to go back and look, like a month maybe. And then it was right back to being overloaded. And so what do you do? This is the disadvantage of, and I'm going to say something controversial that I don't think most ANCAPs realize, the Bitcoin technology is sort of built on communist principles. Whoa, I said that. Yeah, that's crazy, right? Because a lot of ANCAPs, are saying that, this is the way that, this is capitalism, right? And, there's areas where capitalism applies to this, because we have multiple cryptocurrencies that are competing with one another. But the technology of a blockchain itself is sort of a communist technology. And what do I mean by that? I mean, well, cryptocurrency is technically not a valid form of property because it's just patterns that are stored on people's hard drives. So commies love, the abolition of property, especially money. And then there is no central owner or control over the blockchain. So the control is dispersed amongst the community. And so all the problems you have with communes and communism, we're seeing in Bitcoin. We're seeing a complete lack of direction, a complete lack of leadership in the technology, constant infighting, and then now with Bitcoin Cash, subdivisions. This side of the community disagrees with this side of the community. So rather than be able to resolve that, they just say, okay, we're going our separate directions. Now we have two effing copies of Bitcoin, two different versions of Bitcoin. One where the transaction volume problem has been fixed, and the other one that is still mired and broken and overloaded.
But to be fair, no one's initiating force in this, right?
Fair, yeah.
So not quite like communism where it's like, we will take your property because it's not valid property because we say so.
I would say anarcho-communism, sort of like, leaderless community. The community is the only one that can initiate force, and based on a some sort of democratic system, right? So the democracy decided to leave Bitcoin alone and turn it into what they're calling like a settlement layer, which sort of means like you would only use it for the big transactions. And then now we have the separate version of Bitcoin that is trying to follow sort of the original vision for Bitcoin to make the transactions fast and cheap and easy. And they've succeeded, but they've also, the problems with it are still that they're trying to co-opt the Bitcoin brand, which is literally impossible because think of a website out there that just did nothing but publish the prices of cryptocurrencies. If they were to stop calling Bitcoin Bitcoin and start calling this other thing Bitcoin, what would they call the old thing? It's incredibly confusing.
Bitcoin Zero, Bitcoin One, Bitcoin Old, Legacy Bitcoin. Like, it's kind of a weird nomenclature.
Yeah, it's incredibly confusing. But the market is just not going to do that. It's going to confuse the general public because the layman that comes in and says, I want to get into cryptocurrency, they're like, oh, I want to buy Bitcoin. Well, which Bitcoin? Boom. Now you've confused the layman enough that they're out, I think. Like most
BTC or BCH.
Right. Yep. So not only that, but if they don't get the brand, if they don't get the Bitcoin name, then they're an altcoin. And there are hundreds of altcoins now. And so if they're competing amongst altcoins, that's a different audience. Laymen are mostly out. They don't really understand that stuff and don't care to understand other versions of cryptocurrency. And honestly, the only thing they've done is increase the block size. They haven't innovated the technology in any other way. So there's not a differentiator in the market. There's plenty of other altcoins that have done some pretty cool, amazing things, like Monero, who has successfully created a private, untraceable, fungible currency. So if you just have, this one differentiator of,
I like Monero. I don't know.
I do too.
I have to give my support to some Monero, some XMR. Anybody on a exchange? Anyway, carry on, Patrick.
No, I'm just saying that Monero to me is what everyone wanted Bitcoin to be. So now we have Bitcoin proper, and we have Bitcoin Cash, this new guy that's only slightly better. Well, it's functionally a lot better than Bitcoin. But then you have these other altcoins that do all this other really cool stuff way better than Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash. So they're competing with altcoins and they don't have enough ways to do that. So the current status is that Bitcoin Cash is growing in adoption, but not really from the general public. The general public is still just jamming its cash into Bitcoin. The Bitcoin value is almost 20 grand as of the time I walked in here. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon because there's plenty of laymen still just learning about cryptocurrency and they're always going to flow into Bitcoin first, which is a problem because Bitcoin is utterly broken and effectively useless as a digital money right now, unless you're just wanting to move large sums around for investment purposes.
And Bitcoin now has a Coinbase just had an order from the IRS to turn over everyone's account information, how much they've transacted, when they did it, how much it was worth at the time, because federal government is like, hey, we see you've made some money over here, free market.
Yeah.
We would like some. You know, like they come over.
Something that you couldn't do with Monero. Yeah, so it's a weird situation. I personally don't want to risk investing into Bitcoin Cash, even though it's better than Bitcoin, because it would be so easily destroyed. Like if the Bitcoin core team comes around and implements the same change that Bitcoin Cash did, there will be absolutely no reason to have Bitcoin Cash anymore, and I think it would just crash and disappear immediately. I think that's a big risk, and I'm not going to take that risk. So the world's still flowing into Bitcoin legacy, proper, classic, whatever you want to call it. Old school.
Bitcoin 1.0.
And I think my summary of the problem with that is that the world's first impression of cryptocurrency is now going to be a bunch of people flowing money into a broken, backlogged, overloaded, expensive cryptocurrency system. So they're going to have a bad first impression, a bad taste in their mouth, and cryptocurrency in general is the adoption of all cryptocurrency will be slowed by that, I think.
That's a real problem because, like, the other day somebody, so I pass out small amounts of crypto before it was blockchain super slow to give people little samples. Like, this is how the technology works. This is how you can receive it. This is a wallet. Don't keep a whole lot on your phone because your phone is a large surface area for an attack and it's probably not very secure. And somebody was trying to, like, repay. They're like, hey, the Bitcoin's gone up a whole lot since you gave me that little bit. I'd like to give you your original value back. And it was like $10 worth, but it was $10 worth like 8 or 9 months ago.
Okay.
Right? So it's gone up a substantial amount. And they're like, how do I avoid this stupid fee? And I was like, which fee are you referring to? And they're like, it's called a mining fee. I don't want to mine anything. Like, he still hadn't looked into the technology enough to know that basically, and Patrick, you tell me if I'm wrong on any of these accounts, but as a layman, my understanding of it is basically there's a bunch of computers solving really hard math that basically whenever they find a valid answer to this really hard math, they say, hey, network, we have this answer, and now give me all your transactions that happened in the last 10 minutes, and then we'll record them publicly so we can have an account of what Bitcoin goes from user 123 to user 456 and from 789 to 10, 11, 12, creating the public blockchain, as it may be called. So far, so good?
Yeah, close enough, yeah.
Yeah. Close enough. So, but yeah, so like I was talking with him the other day, and it was just kind of interesting to see that people, even though they have money in this, and I know some people who have substantial amounts of money in this, and they don't know the basics of like mining or anything. It's kind of like a...
They shouldn't have to know. You shouldn't have to be an economics major to use a money, you know? Like, and if there's a fundamental problem with, like, if I go to the gas station and I hand the guy cash, and he's like, okay, well, you know, it was $30 to put gas in your car, but I'm also going to need another 20 just for the transaction.
Right.
People are going to be like, this is broken.
That's a problem. That is an economic problem because the incentives are all screwed up. And, well, I mean, I guess the reason why I'm concerned about, like, people not knowing and being informed about what's going on is because a lot of people are saying, oh, it's a scam, it's just like Tulip Mania, it's blah, 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 blah. And a lot of people are just speculating on it without understanding anything underneath it, if that makes sense.
And a lot of people are calling it a scam, and this problem that Bitcoin is having is not helping with that impression.
Yeah, where it's like, oh yeah, I just sent you some. When will it be there? I don't know.
Maybe 2 days.
Someday.
Unless you want to spend $30, you know.
In the future.
Yeah. Who gets the $30? The miners. And then you just devolve into...
Who are the miners? You know,
And then you just start puking technology at them until they get so confused.
But I know one thing that's worse in this entire market, and that is the people who are like, hey, put $100 with me and I'll make you a millionaire overnight because I know all about the secrets of mining Bitcoin. And I'm like... Really? Can you send me some information on this? And they send me it, and it's like, that's not mining.
You're lying.
That's a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
You know?
A lot of fraud, too, yeah.
Fraudulent.
Yeah, so that is the current state of crypto coinage by Monero.
What? You got something in your throat there, Patrick? Did you have some actual currency stuck in your throat?
XMR.
Whenever, so I was scrolling through, you know, the box of doom, aka Facebook, and I stumbled across this story that somebody was really, really in favor of. So I'll play a couple clips for you.
All right.
Right quick. All right, here we go.
Hidden compartments. trap doors, sliding shelves that lead to secret rooms. Could your local convenience store be hiding something?
We already found it. It's already done.
These deputies with the New York City Sheriff's Office cannot show their faces on camera because of the nature of their work. They're out in force on behalf of the city's Department of Finance, regularly looking for these hiding spots that often conceal tens of thousands of dollars in contraband.
The city's losing out on millions on untaxed cigarettes.
Did you catch that last little bit? The city's losing millions on taxation.
Yep.
So the story goes on. The story goes something like this. Basically, in other states, you can spend $4 or $5 for a pack of cigarettes. In New York City, it's closer to 13, right? Mm-hmm. So if you do a little bit of numbers on that, it is a metric fuck ton of taxes going to the city.
More than double the actual market value. Yeah.
Which is just crazy.
Yeah, and the market value is already heavily inflated by all the government interference and fees and additional taxes. Yeah.
Right. So
back in my day, a pack of cigarettes cost 97 cents.
Whenever I get really old and gray, I'm going to be like, back in my day, Bitcoin cost only a couple pennies.
Exactly.
It'll be worth you measure Bitcoins in Lambo. At any rate, so it's interesting that they say these detectives can't show their faces because of the nature of their work. Yeah. They're out in force.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so open, like,
yep.
Hey, we're shaking down people.
Yep.
So basically, all these businesses, they're like, hey, we don't like paying all these really high tax rates on this stuff. What we're going to do is we're going to go buy some in a, not too far away, across another imaginary line, spend a lot less money on our product, and then come over and sell it.
Yeah.
And
it's almost like black markets develop when you control peaceful interactions between people.
Interesting. I've never heard of that economic theory. But I mean, there's more to this story. So I'll play another clip for you, and we'll just see where it goes from here.
A pack of cigarettes in Virginia goes for $4 and change. Here they're $13.
Cigarette tax revenue fund a variety of projects from improving our infrastructure to cancer and other health research. When stores like this smuggle, it puts a real dent in this money that helps everyone, says Sheriff Joseph Fucito.
The city would have to use other means to raise that revenue.
We would have to steal money in some other area if we couldn't steal money from those people.
It benefits everyone.
Yeah.
Did you catch that? But not the people. Clearly, not the people who are willing to break the law in order to subvert it.
Just to try and save some money because it's so outrageously priced there.
$13 versus $4.
Yep.
Like, gosh, this is the top of the head math says, well, 4 times 3 is 12, so it's over 300% more expensive to buy the same product less than 100 miles away. Wow.
And it just illustrates, again, that there's a gun behind every law. Every one of these laws about, we're gonna tax this product. Well, that's not just like something that just kind of happens in the background victimlessly. Like, there are people getting assaulted by cops that won't even show their faces on camera because they take it so seriously.
And not only that, but the reporter, he goes in and he says, these things go to support things like cancer research and infrastructure. And whenever people refuse to pay their taxes, everybody loses. Did you catch on that? On how he's like morally shaming everyone?
Yep.
Whenever I think he ought to say something closer to this. Men with guns are taking your products without your consent. How do we know that it's without your consent? By the fact that you're willing to potentially be attacked by them in order to save a couple bucks.
And you should feel ashamed because we're not able to take your money and help someone else.
It's just complete, man. I got one more clip here. Just enjoy.
Consumers have no way of knowing they may be funding illegal activity because clerks often attach counterfeit tax.
Illegal activity, yeah.
The problem is, like, if you want to buy weed in Texas, it's very difficult to determine if you are spending money that may be used to support actual criminals in Mexico with that money. So it adds another layer of sort of moral implication to just a peaceful thing. So what they're saying is that, people don't know if they're going to support criminal activity. Well, people might care, but they can't because you've taken that ability away from them.
That's very true. And also they say it as a criminal activity, but it's like it's actually a voluntary exchange between two parties.
Right.
That's interesting. I can name one illegal or a legal activity a couple of years ago that I think we'd all be morally abhorrent to. A couple hundred years ago, it was legal to buy people.
Yep.
right? Would they then be saying that, you know, people are illegally setting slaves free?
Well, people want to, I mean, money is speech in a big way, and people want to put their money where their beliefs are. If you wanted to buy cotton trousers back in the day, you'd probably want to know if you're buying it from someone that was supplied by a slave plantation or not, if you cared about that subject back then. And if we found out Walmart was doing evil things, you might want to have competitive options to, you know, give your money to someone else for the same products. Well, you can't really do that when they've criminalized it. And it's not a fair argument to just say, oh, well, we didn't criminalize it, we just made it over twice as expensive. It's like, you're just robbing people. It's absurd.
And there's another thing where they, not in this story, but people say that the reason why there's a cigarette tax is because they're trying to curb the usage of cigarettes, right? Have you ever heard this logical reasoning?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so they put a tax on it, and that's supposed to curb the usage of said product. At the same time, they tax income. So they tax productive labor. Mm-hmm. What is the logical conclusion of this? What's the word whenever this is to this as this is to this? What's that called?
Work less. Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
It's like I need to, if somebody figures it out, drop it in the comments. I know that it was a thing in school whenever it's like, you know, this colon is to this as double colon, this is to this.
Comparison?
I don't remember. It was some like schmancy name, and I want to remember it. But oh well, I'll get to it later.
No, they attack you unless they attack you to get tax money on a product, and then if you don't pay the tax on the product, they attack you. So they're just going to attack you.
There's a lot of attacking involved in this.
Yeah.
So here's the last clip out of that story. Here we go. Buckle up.
Consumers have no way of knowing they may be funding illegal activity because clerks often attach counterfeit tax stamps like this to products. In some cases, arrests are made. In every case, illegal products are seized and fines are levied.
The plan is obviously to increase enforcement to try to limit the amount of underground activity.
It's estimated that roughly 50% of cigarettes purchased in the city are illegal. The sheriff's office is working to change that. Dick Brennan, CBS 2 News.
So 50% of cigarettes sold inside of New York City are anticipated to be illegal, and that doesn't give anyone in a position of power to take a pause and go, why are people doing this?
No, it's not their fault. It's not the people in power's fault that they're attacking people so much that they go elsewhere to get around, to subvert it, to subvert the laws.
No. We have subverted
a really old show.
Oh, don't worry. I got her. She's coming back tonight.
Oh, no.
She's coming back. Brace yourself.
I'm happy and I'm unhappy.
Brace your eyeballs. Carry on, Patrick.
No, that's all I was saying. Is like, whose fault is it? The people that are trying to subvert getting robbed or the people doing the robbing? We got to make sure that the people doing the robbing are held to account.
I would agree with this statement. I almost said statement. Statement. Yeah, and like it just makes me want to not visit New York ever again. Like I have like 3 or 4 episodes on New York coming up that I just have stories on them where I'm like, this is not a good place to go. Oh,
it's a pretty terrible place. We just had a friend arrested there that we did a video on, and
Deanna Joe,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So we had that. Yeah. We did that story. Also, there's a terms of use condition on, I think it's Poloniex' website, where it's like, you cannot use this service by signing up for this. Poloniex is a cryptocurrency exchange where you can buy and sell Bitcoin and a number of other cryptocurrencies. And on it says something to the effect of, if you live in North Korea or New York, you cannot use this service.
Yeah, I mean, both terrible places.
But it's like, that should give somebody pause. Like, okay, so everybody's like, no, that's a bad place to go. Don't go there. But then it's like, New York. You know, you don't want to conflate these two places.
They're in good company. That's right where they fit.
Good, bad company.
Freedom-wise. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, so Patrick, you want to talk about what's been going on lately in more of a free area of the world?
So you may have noticed our most recent video was on Feed the Need 5, a big event put on by the Don't Comply crew to illegally feed and clothe the homeless in the Dallas, Texas area. The end of that video, I had a lot of thoughts bouncing around my head, and I just kind of was so exhausted, and people kind of came into the area at the last minute, so it was kind of cut off, and I didn't really get to talk through everything I was thinking about. So I just wanted to take a second to sort of recap that. Feed the Need 5.
I'm already hearing they're here because they know every year we come and bring sleeping bags and tents and a bunch of food and stuff. Yeah. So it's not where a lot of them are even afraid anymore. They're like, oh, the gun guys are here. They got a bunch of good stuff every year.
So it was amazing. There was like 60 people there giving things away, facilitating, setting the tables up, handing the stuff out. I think we probably helped or gave something to either food, clothing, or supplies to about 350 people. Homeless people in Dallas. It was an amazing event, and I was making that music video. And usually at the end of one of these, sort of vloggy music videos, I'm like, oh, I'm proud of this video. But I had just finished like editing together all of those people. Go watch the video. We won't put the whole 14-minute thing here, but
we will put the link in the description below, though. I'll make sure that happens. So
yeah, totally.
Click it below.
There was a bunch of clips in there of people saying, yeah, we're breaking the law, but we're helping people. And at the end of the video this time, I was just like, wow, I'm so proud of these people. These people in Dallas, I'm just so proud of them. I'm proud to know them. I'm proud that they are, rather than sitting on their ass at home, they're out here in the cold helping people. It was just so cool. So please go watch the video. There were some interesting things that happened there, though, and I didn't put sort of some of the weird stuff in the music video because I wanted it to be about the good things that were happening. But just by coincidence only, there was another small group of people that had shown up before us that were not related to Don't Comply or anything we were doing. They were already there giving some hot dogs out to some of the homeless people there. And the leader of this group, I won't mention its name because I don't remember it, but he basically came up to our guys and sort of accosted them. He was really kind of angry and shitty about it. He was upset that we were using his homeless people to make a statement about guns. So the point of our event was to say, hey, we're going to not comply. We're going to disobey a bad, immoral law. And people in Houston have done this and gotten arrested for it. So only a few hours from here, they've done the same thing without guns and gotten arrested for helping people, for breaking an immoral law. So Don't Comply and their crew and these activists for 5 years now have done it armed. And the cops show up, and guess what? The cops don't F with people. And that was the group's reason for all the guns there. But this guy just saw it as a way of, and it was really weird how he talked about it. I mean, because I'm sure he was friends with the people there, because they do this every week, and this Don't Comply event is once a year, so he's probably got a much closer relationship with them. But he was just like, yeah, I don't like you using these people, and he almost kind of talked about them like they were his homeless people. He thought we were using them to make this message about guns. First of all, that shouldn't even matter, because there was what, $10,000 worth of stuff on those tables that were donated freely. Everything from, it looked like 30 sleeping bags. We went back later and gave out, massive amounts of tents, crazy amounts of food, everything. Does it matter if we're also making a statement about guns and freedom and our right to resist the enforcement of bad laws? I don't think it did. But anyway, he argued with me for like half an hour on this, and I got some of it on video, but I don't know if it was worth it. But I wanted to discuss that there was no using going on. There was a statement being made for sure, because when we do something armed, we're left alone. And when somebody near us in an adjacent city does the same thing, they get thrown in a cage for helping people. So if anything, our message is, hey, here's how you help people successfully.
Yeah, for me, something that I've kind of heard from a lot of people is like, if you do something kind for somebody, but you get anything out of it, that takes away from the entire value of the thing that you just did. And I think that's wrong to say, because end resultant, no matter the state, the internal state or the intention, it's the results that matter. As far as, like if I'm driving down the highway and I intend to harm somebody, but I don't smash their car into the side, we're hunky-dory. In the same way, if I intend to get my message of freedom out, which should not be a big problem, but if I intend to do that, but in the process of doing that, I help a bunch of people, I don't see a problem there.
Yeah, the guy literally said that, you know, it's because you're holding that camera. That's what turns this from a good deed into you using these people. Because you're showing up here recording what's going on.
As one who has made my entire living on amplifying messages to the masses, because I used to work for this little organization called The News, why would that do anything? People, whenever somebody's in trouble and they say, oh no, I have, you know, insert crazy disease here and I need to raise $100,000, who do they turn to?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, media.
The guy with the camera.
Sure, yeah.
Because you can take a message, you can amplify it. There's nothing immoral about taking a message and amplifying it, right?
I checked the views on the video this morning. There are people from around the world that have seen what we did there, that would have never even heard about it had there been no video. Maybe, you know, so in gun discussions around the world now, they can now say, oh, well, here's one thing guns helped.
Right.
Over in that weird country called Texas where they don't put up with shit from nobody. Yeah.
Well, and also I think it might be instructive to those who are trying to put on some kind of charity event, but maybe lack the political clout to get permission from those who claim ownership over a certain territory to be able to get permission to do something.
Yeah, I mean, and it also just, for a brief moment, people around the world, mostly in the country, right? Because the US watches a lot of YouTube, but around the world we're getting views. They're seeing for a brief moment this, it's just like this spark. I don't know if you ever watched Star Trek. I'm going to get nerdy here real quick. There was this one episode of Voyager where they had sort of captured and repaired and healed a Borg that was stranded on a planet. And he was like disconnected from the hive. And for a brief moment, he individuated and felt what it was like to be on his own again and develop relationships and have feelings again. And then it ended up him being re-injected into the collective, and they came and got him and put him back into the Borg collective. And for a brief moment, that feeling, that experience of being an individual and loving and feeling was like broadcast through the Borg collective. And that's what recording things like this do. Whoa, for a brief moment, the entire world can see what it's like to defy bad authority. That is so powerful. And we wouldn't have that if I hadn't recorded it. Was that using his homeless people? That's absurd. That's absurd.
You know, actually, I like the Borg story you just told. I need to find out what that episode is because I want to watch it. But a lot of people imagine getting certain pieces of knowledge like being given the red pill by Morpheus in the Matrix, right? And I find that whenever people take that red pill, whatever that may be, in general, their brain stretches and it cannot go back to that original shape beforehand. So I would posit that real life is even more of a happy ending than this, where the guy gets, pulled back into the collective. But instead here, whenever somebody has a new idea, they can be changed for the rest of their life.
It kind of happened in Voyager, if we want to keep going down this analogy.
Yeah, bring it on.
So the guy that was re-injected back into the Borg collective ended up being a force that started this underground virtual reality that the Borg would connect to inside the Borg collective, where they were all free and individual again. Really? And it sort of created like a sort of anarchist faction within the Borg.
That's cool!
From this one injection. And that's what video does. We need to cover everything that we do to expose other people. But, and not only that, forget all this deep stuff about Borg and injecting and freedom and whatever. Just to, if you're sitting at home, just kind of clicking on YouTube and you come across this video where a bunch of people go out there and you see them helping people. And for a brief moment, you empathize with that and you link with that. And you're like, I could do that. That looks like, those are good people doing really good stuff. I'm going to get off my ass and go do it too. It's a motivator.
And as one who records things, here's a quick public service announcement. If something's going on in your life, good or bad, record the whole thing, right? So on my phone, I have an app called Smart Voice Recorder on the Android. And recently, somebody I know was in a car accident, and in their mind, they told me after the fact that they remembered something that I said to them, which is whenever something's wrong, always record. Although they said it kind of came out slowly always be recording. So that played through their head. They hit record, and they got the person who slammed into the back of their car saying, my brakes didn't work. I'm sorry, my brakes didn't work. Right? So then if that guy comes back and says, no, you're at fault, not me. You slammed on your brakes, and you caused the accident, not me, the perpetrator. They have the ability to just say, well, let's go to the record on what you said the night of. And then it's like, oh, sorry, my brakes failed. It's my fault. I'm sorry. I will pay for it. I'll take care of it because it's not, it's not your fault. So it's not only a power recording. It doesn't matter. Audio off your phone, what we're doing right now through cameras. It's the ability to take a message and send it out, whether that's a message of hope and freedom and goodness, or just one that's CYA and covering your ass, So,
or even the bad times people can learn from and improve their own lives with. If you're like, hey, this is a big problem I'm having. Anyway, yeah. So you look like you're about to say something.
I was about to say, watch reality television. You can learn a lot of things not to do by watching a little bit of reality TV. It's like, I can't believe people do this.
Or Star Wars, but we'll get to that later. So, what are a few other thoughts I had this year? I've done this 1 year previously. I did it again this year. This time, I felt a lot less uncomfortable and sort of weirded out because I'd never experienced this type of this type of ostracization, this type of poverty that these people are in. So this time, I actually just spent time hanging out with and talking with the homeless people out there, and I learned a lot. I got a lot of good, albeit anecdotal, data, which I'm sure is backed up by actual data. My primary line of inquiry was, why is everyone out here? I would say 65, this is anecdotal numbers, but 65% of the people out there had been in jail on some felony level for something drug related. And they're out of prison and they can no longer get a job because they're a felon. So there's a very, very limited amount of jobs that will hire felons, and those get taken up immediately. So if you're left unable to work and to provide for yourself, you end up on the streets for at least a little while, which is a tragedy and is completely perpetuated by the war on drugs. Then you have disabilities. That's probably most of the rest of them were disabled to the point that they're not able to work, either physically or mentally disabled, to where they just can't hold down a job. They can't do the work that's available to them, that's available to someone with their training. So those are the two groups. And then it really hits you on a level that most people don't experience, how destructive the war on drugs is at every level of society. You have, cops that break down doors, shoot dogs in front of the children, traumatizing the children, then they haul the dad off to jail, and then the kids lose a father, you're a single-parent household, everything falls apart. That's one level. Well, then you have, this semi-underclass of people now that are created when they get out, they're felons for the rest of their life on this stupid victimless crime drug stuff. And now society has an obligation to sort of take care of these people. And every time the state tries to take care of these people, it wastes massive amounts of money and usually makes everything worse. It's just, this is the evidence that the war on drugs fails, is right out there in that video. Those people, most of the people you see in that video, are victims of the war on drugs.
And was there a police presence that day, or what was kind of going on? I wasn't there. I sent some cash in to Doc and had him handle some of that was my form of speech, right? So,
yeah.
What was the police presence like that day?
There were quite frequent drive-bys by police in various police vehicles, and then we had a couple obvious, probably rookie undercover guys show up that looked very out of place, trying to act like they were just walking by the worst part of Texas, the worst part of Dallas, just kind of walking by, nice clothes, just walking around the worst possible part of Dallas, and just stumbled upon our group and started asking questions about what we were doing. It was pathetic. But unlike previous years, which it has happened, the regulators have come out and started demanding things like permits or whatever, food licensing permits.
What does that end up looking? What does that translate into? As one who is unaware as to what a food permit is.
Well, I don't know all of the details, but in the beginning, to feed anyone that wasn't friends or family, like in a backyard barbecue, you had to pay for a license, and then your food preparation equipment and environment had to meet the regulations for such things before you could feed a person. And I think the state of Texas, or maybe the city of Dallas, well, I think it was the state of Texas, probably the state of Texas, attacked some church members in an unrelated to this thing for feeding people. And apparently a bunch of people gave a bunch of money, and it turned into a $250,000 multi-year lawsuit against the state of Texas that had the net effect of merely changing the rule to say, well, you can feed one person without you can feed up to 75 people without going through the licensing rule process. So you can help some people, just not too many. You just can't help too many people.
So to clarify this, 75 people I can go out and feed right now. I could, go make a cake or a pizza or whatever.
Yep.
76 men with guns.
Jail time. Yep.
Will throw me in a cage?
Yep. You nailed it. Yep. 76. Yep.
That's interesting.
Interesting.
That's
one
different.
word for it.
That's different.
Yeah.
That's
so yeah, if you help too many people, you're
an immoral bad person who ought to be thrown in a cage if you help too many people.
You got it.
Let them starve in the fucking streets.
You got it. Yep. So
can't wait for that one to be taken out of context in the future. Like, look at what Kaysen said back in the past. He said, "Let them starve in the fucking streets."
That's right.
Anyway,
that's right. Yep.
So, is there anything else you want to add on this?
No, I just kind of wanted to talk about the dude that felt like we were using people, and I wanted to reiterate the tragedy of the destruction caused by the war on drugs.
Brutal.
Government solutions to government problems.
Yeah, really. So I have here on the subject of men with guns and all that jazz. I was reading online recently. I went to a website called the Tax Justice Network, which I'm like, oh, okay, maybe there might be some good stuff here for me to check out. And I stumbled across
the Theft Justice Network is what my brain translated that into.
Your brain may do that. I would not correct you.
All right.
So I went on to here, the Tax Justice Network, and I stumbled across this article that says, "No, it's not your money. Why taxation isn't theft."
Oh God, sorry.
You okay?
I just puked. I got to clean that up later.
Oh crap.
Oh man.
Well, that's awkward.
Don't step over here for a little while.
I'll stay right here. I'm not moving. So, no, it's not your money. Why taxation isn't theft. There's actually a little section on here. So there's a guy. His name is Philip Goff. I hate him. But basically, he goes to, let's see here. Here we go. Your pre-tax...
it comes with music. That's good.
Yeah, I just made the music for you just to kind of kill time while I was scrolling to the bottom. Your pre-tax income isn't the money you deserve. It's the money that the amoral market has gifted you. Okay? A government may have cause to respect the whims of the market as a matter of practical necessity, but the state has no moral reason to respect the whims of the market. Okay? There's actually a part where he says the moral argument. Oh, here we go. The moral argument of the economic right, which is we must lower taxes in order to give people more of their money. That argument is based wholly on the confused notion that there are something morally significant about the distribution of incomes that the market happens to throw up. So I noticed a couple things about this.
Oh, you did? just a couple.
More than a couple, but just out of that little excerpt right there. Philip asserts that the market just kind of happenstance throws resources left and right. Like, oh, you're a CEO. He actually has a little part in here. I think it was like 100 times. Let's see.
And he called it the amoral market, right?
The amoral market. Yep. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, so boom.
That was the only accurate thing he said.
Here we go. I had to Control F. By the way, Control F allows you to type in what you're looking for, and it'll tell you. So here's his little mention that I think is worth mentioning. So if there is a general right to one's pre-tax income, then it must be a moral right. But it's implausible to suppose that each person has a moral right to his or her pre-tax income. For that would imply the distribution of pre-tax incomes the market happens to throw up, he says that a lot, happens to throw up, is perfectly just.
Well, I just happened to throw up.
You did just happen to throw up.
And this is clearly not the case, he asserts. There is no justice in the fact that the pre-tax income of a city banker is many hundreds of times the pre-tax income of a scientist working on a cure for cancer. So this is what I've noticed. Whenever people are trying to justify taxation, they say something to the effect of, it's for everyone and it's for the research to cure cancer. It was in the cigarette story and it's in this story. How immoral is it that a man who banks, who helps people store their money inside of an account, right? How immoral and evil is it that he gets paid more than a scientist who's looking for the cure to cancer? Well, guess what, sugar booger? People are willing to voluntarily trade in most cases. There are exceptions to this, a la Wells Fargo, most recently. People are willing to pay for that guy's salary and not for the others, right? As far as if it's a truly free market, then whatever people are willing to pay for, whatever the market will bear, that's what's going to get paid for. And if it's not a free market, because, I don't know, maybe you have to go get permission from some kind of governing body to be able to do research on things that matter to you, like, I don't know, how to cure cancer, right? Or how to become a doctor. Do you know how hard it is to become a doctor in the United States?
I am quite aware my brother's trying to become a doctor.
Would you like to explain it to me just a little bit? Just a little bit of a story of how hard it is to become a doctor?
He still doesn't have a job.
And how long has he been trying to make this happen, roughly?
I think he's 10 years, 12 years in. No, hold on. Yeah, maybe more than that. Yeah, it's an insane process. Now, granted, he's making a paycheck, but that's not a job because, you know, he's not allowed to pick his job or to negotiate salary or anything like that. But no, it's an insane convoluted process, and every step of the way it's full of people telling you what you have to do and causing inefficiencies and barriers and reducing the supply of doctors at every possible step. It's insane.
Like, I went to Care Now, which is like a doc in the box kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got some XMR real money inside my throat.
Which sounds like a disparaging thing, like a doc in a box, but that's amazing.
No,
actually.
I love, so okay. Personal story time with Kason. Okay, so I went to, I had a medical thing happen. I won't be too specific, but basically I was concerned. So I went to the ER one day. This is I think it's the only time I've ever gone to the ER outside of being born. And whenever I was there, I sat in a waiting room about 4 hours with blood coming out of my body in places that blood should never come out of. Okay?
Oh, okay.
And I'm sitting there bleeding, and I go up to the front desk lady, and I'm like, hello, I'm bleeding. Can I see a doctor, please? And she's like, you gotta wait in line like everybody else, right?
Yeah.
So...
But I have blood.
But I have blood. I don't know what the hell it is. I might have Ebola, you know? Like, I don't know
what she doesn't know what it is.
And she said, you have to wait, right? And there's people there with, like, the cold or whatever, because that's, I don't know, I guess people go to the ER for a cold. Somebody told me they had a cold whenever I was there. And so I'm concerned. And after 3-4 hours in the waiting room, I get to see a nurse. I think it's a registered nurse or nurse practitioner or something like that. They're like, it's just as good as the doctor. Do a couple tests. And they say, we'll let you know in a couple days whenever we get the test results back. And I'm like, I think I might be dying. Please help me.
There is blood. You see that? I don't know what's coming from your arm. I keep pointing to my arm.
That's okay. You can use the arm. I don't think it would be appropriate to pull out what was actually... Never mind. Anyway, so I get a bill. Oh, sorry. No. So the next day, because I'm like, well... I guess I'm just going to die. I'm going to bleed out on these hospital steps. So the next day I go to Care Now, which is a doc in the box.
Yep.
They charge me, I think, $80 to see the doctor, 30 minutes of their time. And they're like, oh, you probably have an infection on one of your internal organs. This happens to most guys roughly once in their lifetime. Oh. And don't be concerned. You'll be okay.
Now I'm worried.
And you hit yours really early. Right. Oh, okay. So I started talking with them, and I go get a prescription filled, and then I'm fine. I'm hunky-dory. A couple months later, maybe it's a month, maybe it's 2 months, I get a bill for, wait for it. Hey, Patrick, can I have a drum roll? Over $6,000!
Ching.
For no diagnosis, for no help, for no aid.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
But I go to the freest of markets in the doctor sphere in my area.
Doc in a box.
Doc in a box. And $80, $90. And a prescription cost, probably another $50, $60.
Amazing. No insurance, right?
No insurance. Yeah. No.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just left my job at the news station and was either between jobs or starting my company at that time.
Yep.
So And man, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, basically the government fucks up everything as far as supply. Supply is concerned. And people, whenever they're talking about taxation, they go and they say something to the effect of, but it's for cancer research. It's for my roads. It's for my education.
The children.
It's for the children. Yep. You know, don't forget about the children.
It's for the blood coming out of the body. No, the problem is... The problem is this guy thinks that it's possible to have an entity that has the right to interfere in the transactions of two free, peaceful people. If guy A wants to give money to guy B in exchange for doing something, no one has the right to interfere in that. And the money that A gives to B now belongs to B. It's not the community, it's not the world, it's not societies, it's not the government's money that changed ownership. The government doesn't exist, first of all, owns nothing legitimately.
I would like to substantiate your argument that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And read a fine excerpt from Philip Goff's article.
Yeah, challenge this guy to a debate. I'll
kick his intellectual ass.
I'll make the blood come out.
The blood. So he writes, it is the responsibility of lawmakers then not to respect pre-tax incomes, but to disrespect pre-tax incomes. Insofar as the market fails to yield a just distribution of incomes.
In his opinion.
The state should work to correct that distribution. That's an interesting assertion.
We call that communism.
It's an interesting assertion to say, I think that the voluntary transactions that have been conducted in this sphere ought to be more like what I imagined it to be in this sphere, and men with guns ought to extract resources from this sphere and transfer them over to what I think the ideal should be. I don't know. How do you where do you reach the end in that line of thinking?
Until you reach a state of justice. Justice.
When does that end? How do you know what is just and not unjust? Like, he doesn't put forth a framework on how to know that.
Just for who?
Compared to what?
Yes, there's none of that. It's all gone. Yep.
These are the things that keep me up at night going, oh no, we're all gonna die. And not because of the blood, but because of the idiots.
Yep.
So anyway, that's my story on taxation not being theft, Mr. Patrick.
Let's send that guy a message and challenge him on that.
Philip Goff.
Yeah.
Yeah, he actually wrote, we must lower taxes in order to give people more of their money. This argument is based on the wholly confused notion that there is something morally significant about the distribution of incomes that the market happens to throw up. I actually just debated recently with more of an anarcho, but definitely a communist. More of an anarcho, but definitely a communist. And he was positing that, like, things just happen. Things just happen to people. You can't really control it. And because of that, you have to take from from what you produce and give people what they actually need. And I was like, what do you really need? Like, do you need a corgi?
I need a janitor to clean up this puke.
Are you about to clean it up?
No, I'm getting my kofifi.
Kofifi. All right. So, I mean, like, how do you determine what is need? What is a valid need? What is an invalid need? What is just a want? What is a pleasantry, a luxury?
What did he say?
He said basically that the market is very... He actually didn't answer the question. He redirected to something to the effect of, the market is very inefficient at getting out resources because people are starving around the world and U.S. grocers throw out food. And somebody who was at that conversation spoke up and said, I used to work for insert large company that might rhyme with Margit, Sharget, where you can shop at Sharget.
Okay, I had no idea what we started at. Okay.
Sorry, I was trying to make it more obtuse, but that just made it wrong. I used to work at Sharget in the quality control section of produce, and consumers don't buy things that don't look perfect. So we have to throw them out because consumers won't buy them. We have laws that prevent us from selling stuff past a certain time. And there was a couple other things because the communist asserted that, capitalists they buy inventory and they just throw out everything that's not sold. And this person who worked at Margit, Schmargit, Target came out and said,
Tajay.
the schmanciest grocery store on the market.
Not Target. That's the name of it.
Yeah, it was not Target.
Yeah.
And this person came out and said, oh, that's not how inventorying works, just so you know. Like, we basically order based on when we're going to sell out or when we predict we're going to sell out because they only keep so many days of food, like, stockpiled.
Yep.
They had, I think they mentioned it was like 3 days worth of food, like is stockpiled at that particular store where they used to work. So I thought that was kind of an interesting little.
When you can see that, we'll link the other video. We went to, before the Feed the Need 5 event, Matt and I went to a Kroger nearby to pick up some last minute food items to give to the homeless. And we just happened to talk to the manager to see if he had anything that the store could donate, because we assumed, like you're talking about, that they have extra stuff that doesn't sell that will just go in the trash. And he told us about how it used to be absolutely unequivocally illegal for them to just give away food that they could no longer sell. And recently something was changed to where they are allowed to do it, but only within a small time window, which we just sort of happened to be in. He could have given us a lot more had that not been the case, but he gave us what he could. And so, I mean, all you have to do is show up and ask is what it seems to be, you know, if you have a thing going on.
So that's pretty much...
so it's not like an evil capitalist overlord hoarding food just to throw it away.
That's unprofitable.
These people want to help. Like, he was so excited to help us. He was energized by our mere request. Hey, we're going to go help people. Do you have anything? And he's like, yeah. And he like ran all over the store finding stuff for us.
I don't understand why people have it in their heads that this idea that to make a profit is evil. Because to me, it's a badge of honor to say I have serviced the needs of my fellow man to such a degree that I am able to continue doing this. It's an amplifier, much like the microphone and the camera earlier, you know, as far as like this is my tool to amplify my message as far as a camera goes. Well, money is much the same way. It's a way to amplify one's message because, I don't know, what's something that pretty much everyone thinks is a good nonprofit these days that does good in the world? One that's generally accepted as decent, because I don't want to pick one that's like scandalous.
I don't know of a good one.
Let's just say a blood drive. Can we say a blood drive is
a blood drive?
Probably good.
Sure.
So like a blood drive. Well, they need materials to host a blood drive. They need to have needles. They need to have people who are licensed by the government in order to draw blood from a human. Unless the blood is oozing out in the lobby, then you could actually do a blood drive really quickly.
There's the blood coming out. Yeah, sorry. I can just picture you walking up to the window. But what about my blood?
Please help me. I am dying. I believe I am dying. I need to see a doctor. But like a blood drive, any old blood drive, they need to have people. They need to have space to do it. Probably needs to be heated or cooled unless they live in like Hawaii or someplace that's really nice year round. So they need money in order to do the things that people say are like, yeah, we want to make sure that people don't die whenever they're bleeding. Yep. You know? So,
yeah, that was a good story.
Yeah. Patrick, have you seen any good movies lately?
Nope. I also saw Star Wars.
And how was it?
What was it called? Star Wars The Last Jedi?
Yeah, Star Wars Episode 8, Last Jedi.
Oh, man. It was the prettiest dumpster fire I have ever seen. That is my official review. It was gorgeous. Like, visually, it was probably some of the best CGI I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, before we say anything else, spoiler alert.
Oh, yes, there will be spoiler. Oh, yeah,
spoiler.
Dude, that
Don't
was...
be a dick.
Wow,
We almost broke the DBAD principle.
I almost dicked all over the place. Oh, man.
Then other people would vomit and...
Yeah, and that would just be bad. Yeah, so we're going to talk about the movie real quick.
Last chance. Here we go.
Yeah, I thought it was terrible. Like, in every way, other than graphically, I had very little good to say about this movie. I think the Mary Sue nature of Rey carried over from the first movie.
What is a Mary Sue?
It is a female trope, which means common theme with a female character in movies, where they don't go through what is it called, the hero arc, where
the hero's journey.
The hero's journey.
Where they have to go and get trained by the mentor, and the mentor can't stay, and the mentor has to depart, a la Obi-Wan, Episode 4, A New Hope.
Yeah. Yeah, where they don't, where they have they go through a path where they usually get broken down or defeated, then they, train up and gain new skills, which they then use to defeat the opponent or the bad situation or whatever. A Mary Sue is a trope that basically calls out a lot of female characters in a lot of stories where they somehow, by their nature of being female or something, get to just skip that whole get broken down, but have to fight and learn and strive and train to get better. So Mary Sue, so Rey basically in the last movie, Force Awakens, just, instantly is able to fly the Millennium Falcon and semi-use the Force and whatever, and that was definitely continued on into this movie. Still absolutely no training. She's able to lightsaber battle Luke, not like with actual lightsabers, but she like a sword fighting scene against Luke that she held her own in, and she already knew how to do forms with a lightsaber.
They even call it out with Snoke and Kylo. He's like, "You were beaten by a girl who's never even picked up a lightsaber."
Exactly.
Like, they call it out. Yeah. Like, they call out that Kylo Ren is, that, and Rey is that.
Yeah, and Snoke.
In the film.
Speaking of, and Snoke is supposedly like this. Well, he came out.
He's like an all-powerful deity.
That came out of nowhere with no setup either.
Darth Plagueis theory. Darth Plagueis.
Yeah. But so he was like completely eliminated, like a bitch. Like, it was just there was nothing good about the plot. What else?
He was an all-powerful joke.
To continue down the feminist route, there was a lot of that in there. There
was literally a purple-haired woman who was in charge of everything.
Everything.
Literally.
Yep.
Purple-haired.
Yep.
I just thought that was kind of funny.
There was that moment where I yelled this out in the theater. I wish you were sitting a couple seats over and heard me because I thght it was hilarious.
Oh yeah, we saw it together in case you couldn't tell.
In the end, when she's about to warp the ships into the bad guys, she right before she hit go and warped in there, I was like, "Smash the patriarchy!" It was so good. Anyway.
So there's a scene where purple-haired lady, I don't even remember her name, and that's how emotionally detached I was. Purple-haired lady. She's like, "I'm gonna sacrifice myself for the good of everybody. Yeah. I'm gonna light speed jump into the big battle group and kill them all." And that shot, holy cow, was gorgeous.
Oh man, the whole movie was gorgeous.
That's the most gorgeous thing I've seen put to film, and everything gets really quiet whenever she jumps to light speed. It's amazing. But the person sitting to my right was just like, could have put it on autopilot.
I know. Fly by wire. I can do that now with my drone, with my little cell phone. I think they'd be able to do this with
pre-program a jump in.
Yeah.
Punch it.
It's like, hey Google, aim ship at enemies and warp. Done. Walk off the ship. It's like. So another thing that bothered me is this is happening so much in movies. All the male characters are either dumb, idiot, campy. Morons. In this case, they were recklessly suicidal or evil, all the male characters, with one or two exceptions that were only on screen for a brief amount of time. And the opposite was true with the females. All on the good side, on the rebel side, almost all of the leadership.
No. The resistance. We're not rebels. We're the resistance.
You're right.
It's the new canon.
The neo rebels. Yeah.
Although they do still have the rebel insignia. Just say
it's the alt rebels.
They're trying to fan service that. The alt rebels.
So all the leadership were females.
Yes.
And there's
a line of them,
and almost none of the leadership on the evil side were female. Those were all men, and they were usually idiots or. I
don't think there was any females on the New Order.
There was the shiny mirror stormtrooper. She was kind of a commander stormtrooper.
Captain Phasma. Yeah,
that was the only sort of female leader on that side.
Which we got to talk about her armor, but we'll come back to that.
Yeah, so it's like. You just can't help but seeing these feminist narratives just jammed into these movies nowadays. And for me, that just really pulls me out of the immersion and just ruins it. I don't know about you guys. Let us know in the comments. There were huge plot holes everywhere.
Like Phasma's armor, which made me think, okay, so her armor can block blaster shots.
Yeah.
So I'm like, make everyone's armor like that?
Nope. She is the only one that gets to be immune to blasters.
Even if it is super, super hard to find this material... Well, don't put it on people that are, can break their legs inside of it. Put it, those little hunter-seeker drones. that Darth Maul had in Episode 1? Make a couple balls of those.
You win the war.
You win everything. Like, what can you do whenever it's floating above? You can't throw a stick at it because it's indestructible and can fly.
And if you can destroy an entire armada of ships by just warping one ship in their general direction,
do that.
Maybe do that for the past 9 movies.
Do that all the time. Like, in the next episode, I expect every battle to be decided in space by who does the kamikaze maneuver first.
Yeah. And so Luke runs off to this island to die, yet lives for years without actually killing himself. And then ends
I think he just meant to like go off and to like expire naturally. He was tormented because he wasn't connected to the Force. He was conflicted. He was ridden with guilt.
But then he suicided later.
But he had to connect to the Force because he didn't suicide. He Force ghosted. He ghosted out.
But that's suicide, isn't it?
No, because he's not dying. He's becoming one with the Force like Yoda. Yoda's not dead.
So, I mean, I guess my best theory was
now we disagree. We can talk about ethics all day and we never disagree, but we get into a movie and it's like, oh!
So did he like overexert himself by projecting himself across the universe and that's why he died? Or did he actually just say, oh, dead, and gave up the ghost, so to speak?
I think he super exerted himself, which weakened him, but I think ultimately it was his choice whether or not he was going to join the Force or not.
I agree with that.
Because they said, I felt...
that makes it worse, though.
I felt like I felt peace. Nothing but peace. He's gone, but I didn't feel terror or shock or horror. He's now back with the Force, and I felt nothing but peace.
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense because right before the fight started, he told Leia, I came here to take your son out, which is not true. He just came there to delay his son and not actually take him out. It's like, well, why did you tell Leia you were going to kill her son if you were just going to go dance around as a ghost?
Maybe he meant to spiritually destroy him. Because, like, Kylo is now the guy we got to follow. Like, he is the guy that we're going to follow his arc.
Does anyone care about Kylo? He's like the least intimidating bad guy ever.
They actually call him they basically call him a bitch in the throne room. It's like, you are beaten by a girl with no training in a lightsaber. Yeah. You're just a baby with a mask. And then he smashes the mask.
And I'm not emotionally invested in Rey either. She didn't even work to get to where she's at. She can just magically land in the exact spot where people are trying to come out of a cave and force lift tons and tons of boulders with no training.
She saw the ice creatures walking on. She's like, there it is, Chewie. And then Chewie landed it in the Falcon.
How did she know the ice creatures were where they were coming out?
Because she was scanning for life forms.
Yeah, but how did she know that people were trying to get out of a cave?
It's the Force.
Okay.
That's not how the Force works.
Well, how did she lift tons and tons of rocks with no training when it took Luke, forever to lift the little ship a little bit out of the water?
The Force?
Okay. Yeah.
The Force is stronger with her?
Mary Sue.
The Force is stronger with her.
Yeah. What else? A lot of the plot arcs set up in Force Unleashed were just totally dropped when brought over to this movie. Like, we went from the...
Force Unleashed, that's a video game.
Force Unleashed, sorry. The last movie, what was it called? Force Awakens.
Force Awakens.
Yeah, the plot set up in The Force Awakens was just totally dropped. It wasn't brought over to this
where
movie.
are the Knights of Ren? Who are the Knights of Ren?
Well, the New Order just suffered a massive defeat. We blew up their primary weapon with this massive base. And
they also squeezed off a good shot and blew up 6 planets.
They didn't blow
them up.
And then they go from that massive defeat to this movie, they own the entire galaxy with no explanation.
They had multiple Starkiller bases.
Okay.
Clearly.
All right.
Actually, no, not at all.
What else? So the entire movie was almost flagrant, blatantly copied plot points and scenes and setups from the first 3 movies.
Whenever you say the first 3.
Well, yeah.
I mean
the original 3, the original trilogy.
Just to clarify for those of us...
Yeah, like when Rey was first brought into Snoke's room and he brought over to the window showing the battle, I said to the guy sitting next to me, I was like, I'm afraid this battle station will be quite operational when your friends arrive. Because it was exactly the scene. Mm-hmm. They just kept ripping off. And they, 1 or 2 is callbacks to the movie. And you're like, oh yeah, they did that because that's cool,
They're self-aware.
But the entire movie was like a copy.
Well, even the very beginning, they were evacuating a base, much like the Hoth evacuation. They load on the same transports, and then they got to, the first transport is away. Yep. They do all that.
And then the last battle, when they're blasting the hole through the wall, they actually call it out to point out that it's not a snow planet. He's like, it's salt. We're not copying the planet Hoth.
Yeah, they have walkers on a white, dusty planet, like big AT-AT walkers.
Yeah.
And then they have a guy who just licks the ground.
Yeah.
Like he picks up something on the ground, he licks it, and he goes, it's salt. Just to differentiate.
Who would do that?
This is not Hoth. Just so you are aware.
Because they knew. That's why I'm saying it was flagrant. They knew what they were doing, which I think was a bad decision. Leia was creepy.
Creepy.
Like,
I felt uncomfortable whenever she
came back from the dead.
Yeah, because it just does a close up shot on her floating in space.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I am looking at an actual dead person. Like that's what I thought. And then all of a sudden she's like, bitch, please, got the Force. And then she comes back.
No, it was that moment. It was like, I'm looking at a digital recreation of a person that is actually dead. It was just really awkward.
It was morbid.
And then she did like the Mary Poppins umbrella fly back towards the ship out of nowhere. Now she can like force fly. That was interesting. And it was weird.
Well, so Leia blows up in the ship. I'm assuming you've seen the movie, because if you're watching this and you didn't avoid the spoiler alert, then, well, sorry.
TFB?
But the so her ship gets blown up, but Kylo is the one who's tasked with blowing up the bridge. So he gets a lock, and I'm like, oh man, Kylo, he's now being faced to either kill his mother or not, because he killed his father. In the last one, he killed Han. So now it's like, this is a crucial moment. And then he backs off the missiles. He's like, nope, not doing it. And then his co-pilots, his little escort, just like Darth Vader had 2 escorts on the side of his advanced TIE fighter, they shoot some proton torpedoes and blow the crap out of it.
Proton torpedoes.
And Leia blows up. She blows out into space.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that might be like the best way you could get Leia out to write her out, because it's like you now see that Kylo has some good left in him because he spared her. But then it's like,
good death scene for Leia.
Psych.
Yep. Yeah. So now what are they actually going to just totally digitally recreate her for the next movie, or what? Like that was the perfect way out. I agree. I think that was good. No, not perfect, but it was good. What else? Snoke was a joke.
The fucking porgs.
Snoke was a joke.
The porgs at the beginning. The little... and Chewie.
Blatant product placement. They needed to be able to sell a plushie, so they invented... Just make a really, really cute animal, and we'll jam him into the movie in a not obvious way.
And the way of doing a cute is to have really big eyes.
Yep.
And little squat body and a big head. And then to make him annoying and helpless.
Yep.
And there's a scene where Chewie's holding on to a cooked porg, and he's about to eat one. And then it's like I think this movie went full SJW, where it's just like, eating meat is murder. And then Chewie's like, like he's about to eat it, and they're like,
and you know they're gonna make a cereal out of those things now.
Porg cereal
and plushies, everywhere.
They're already selling the plushies before the film even came out. I saw them at Think Geek the other day at the mall.
Speaking of Chewie,
Chewbacca.
So we have the Millennium Falcon and Chewie.
Yeah,
all over the movie.
That's hollow.
Without Han,
so hollow. It's depressing.
I just got a little sad every time I saw it.
Yep.
It was just...
Which I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay being sad because Han's dead. Like, Chewie should be depressed. Like, that is reasonable.
Yeah, but then you have Rey, her Mary Sue ass, like gets in the turret, and she's like, this is fun, and she's just like, she doesn't miss a shot, and anyway.
I believe the term is great kid, don't get cocky.
Yeah, I think that's about all I have to say on that. Yeah, I torrent it. That's all I'm saying.
Monero. So I have a question for you. On a scale of 1 to 10, insert movie character from the Star Wars universe, what would you rate Star Wars Episode 8?
Graphics, 10 out of 10. That was one of the prettiest movies I've ever seen.
But you're just giving me a number. I need a character.
What?
Like, I would give it 2 gonk droids out of 10. Like, I'd give it, the gonk, those things. I'd give it 2 gonk droids.
Those guys were cool.
Or maybe 3 Tusken Raiders out of 10. Well, 10 out of 10 what's, graphic-wise?
Oh, I give it like 1 desert.
1 desert?
Just nothing but sand.
Nothing but sand. 1 desert monologue.
Yeah.
I hate sand.
Yeah.
It's rough and it's coarse.
Yeah, no, I actively wish I hadn't seen that movie. Because it ruined my childhood. No, I hate people say that, but not really. It kind of did. So, like, this movie
You're very conflicted on this.
This movie concluded the entire story arc of Luke. Like, from the beginning of the show to now, the arc of Luke is brought to an end, and I think they did a terrible job. Are you interested at all in the next movie? You have, like, an impotent semi-bad guy with emo rage, and you have a Mary Sue who there's no one left to train. Like, no, there's no one alive
Luke.
to train her to be a Jedi.
Ghost Luke. Ghost Yoda.
The movie was called what?
Ghost Luke.
Did Ghost train people? I don't think so.
No. So Yoda gets some schooling from Obi-Wan back in episode 6. It was like, wasn't I defiant whenever you first met me? So they can have chats.
Chats, but not like sword fighting days. I don't know, maybe.
She doesn't need the
movie was
practice
called Last Jedi.
Yeah.
But by the end of the movie, there were no Jedi left. And I know they call her a Jedi.
She took the books, the original
She's not a
Jedi
Jedi.
text.
Because she hasn't been trained.
But she has the books.
Yeah. I don't know. All right.
Wow.
One desert.
One very flat Tatooine desert with 2 suns floating in the sky, burning everything to a crisp.
But every grain of sand is meticulously, beautifully crafted.
That's true. It looked really good.
Yeah.
And Poe Dameron hitting the booster at the beginning, like, that's cool. That was grade A.
The humor was really awkward.
It was like trying to be a Marvel film whenever it's not. It's like Disney. I know you own Lucasfilm and Marvel, but
Star Wars isn't about campy humor, and they tried to
like look throwing his lightsaber over and like looking at it, all dramatic, and then just like not funny.
And Mark Hamill does not approve. I saw some recent videos.
Mark Hamill
again does not approve. Go Google YouTube Mark Hamill
shits on the new series. That's actually the name of the video. Mark Hamill shits on the new Star Wars.
Yep. And I agree with everything he says.
So on the topic of police, terrible transition point.
I'm running out of square footage to puke in, so be careful.
Okay, so you ever heard of this little town called Detroit?
Yep.
I'm just going through all the big cities. I will say Charlie LaDuff
right next
did
to
this.
Iraq, right?
Here's Detroit.
I'm not up on my geography.
Here's Detroit.
A single woman living alone on the east side, afraid to go in her own home. The thieves could still be in there, waiting on the cops. But she's got Fox 2 working for her. Fox 2 coming in. They got the TV, the game machine, the laptop. 1.5 hours and still no cops.
But who will protect my property?
Oh, you mean they called the cops?
They called the cops.
And took them 2 hours?
It's been 1.5 hours. No, it goes longer than this, buddy. It's been 1.5 hours and still no cops. Home burglary, 1.5 hours, still no cops.
The news got there first?
The news got there first. Charlie LaDuff.
That stings.
By the way, there's a few news people out there that I like watching.
All right.
John Stossel, Charlie LaDuff.
Yep.
So yeah, that's the first little bit. Let's just see where this goes from here.
Nothing yet. 3 hours.
What?
And still no police.
All right.
Someone at the door. Is that the police?
Please be a pizza man. Please be a pizza man.
Police? Oh no, it's the grandkids. Hey guys. Hi.
So the grandkids get there before the police. It's been over 3 hours now. Do you think they're going to show up inside of 3.5 hours, Patrick?
If they're not going to show up in 3 hours, are they going to show up at all?
That's a good question.
Okay.
Let's continue our journey.
I'm intrigued.
Precincts closed after 4. 850,000 calls to 911 stacking up. Everybody a potential victim of crime in Detroit. And City Hall's answer? Put fewer police on the streets. Well, so what happened to you this morning?
On my way to work. I come outside, my car gone.
This morning?
This morning.
You call the police?
Yep.
They show up?
Nope.
Oh. What?
Nope.
What in the world is going on?
That's exactly the question I'm asking, because taxes are to pay for the police.
For protection.
For protection from property crimes.
Taxes are the price we pay.
To live in a civilized society where our stuff is protected.
Yeah. It's almost like that's a lie or something.
Let's see when the police actually show up, though.
The cops arrive 4 hours later.
Damn.
And they say they came as soon as they were assigned the call.
This is your report number. Give them a call to find out the investigator who's in charge of your case, and that investigator should send someone out here to dust your home for prints.
Okay. Dust your home for prints?
Yes.
Tomorrow?
They should.
Tomorrow.
I love his humor. Tomorrow.
I don't even know what you say to that. It's a complete failure. The justice system is a complete failure, not just in Detroit, but especially in Detroit.
It's because they don't have enough money, right?
Incentive.
It's because they don't. No. That's it's because they don't have enough money.
They would tell you
that's a justification. Yeah. We need more money from our cigarette sales taxes, right?
We need to rob more so that we can protect you better. We're not robbing you enough, so we're not able to protect you from robbery enough.
I have a little bit of a story, another story with cases. So I had, as I've mentioned, I'm a guy who records things, right? So I have cameras and stuff like that.
Yep.
Once upon a time, I had 3 cameras taken. They fetch a market value of around $10,000, right? So I had them all taken out of a place that I stored them. It was a studio overnight. And I call up Dallas police because it was in Dallas County. And they come out. They take a statement. They give me the report just like they did, and they say, here's the detective who'll be working on your case. Give him a call. So I give him a call that day. No answer. I go on, and I figure out that yes, I did record my serial numbers of this camera. Let me see if I can, at least report it to pawn shops so they can't sell it, because pawn shops have to take a serial and put it in some database to see if it's a hot item.
Yep.
So I put that out there, and then also I put a little... There's a website, ifthisthenThat.com, where you can basically program really, really basic stuff. Like, if an item on eBay with this name is listed, send me an email. Yep. So guess what popped up on eBay later that day?
Really? Okay.
So we have a PI, private investigator. They go out. They knock on the door. And they say, this is stolen property. We'll be taking this back. They find 2 of the cameras there. The third one we still haven't recovered at this point. So I get that. And the guy says, this guy was selling them. He was selling 3, but I can only buy 2. He's selling them for $50 a pop. What?
Wow. Yeah.
So I call DPD. I give them an update. They say, okay, great. About a month or 2 goes by. I'm visiting another studio in Dallas, trying to see if I want to maybe partake in some office space or something up here. And I go to the 7th floor or 6th floor towards the top where they have some space available for rent. And I see like a fake film set. And I'm like, that's funny. I had a camera that used to look just like that. That's kind of funny. So I went through the whole tour. And I come back around. And I realize on the back of the camera, there's a yellow piece of gaff tape with brown Sharpie that says, are you recording? And I'm like, that's funny. I remember on one of the events that I used one of those cameras, I only had yellow gaff tape and a brown Sharpie. And I put, are you recording on the back to remind my camera operators to record. Oh, my God, that's my camera.
What?
Yeah. So I found my camera like 3-4 months after it was originally stolen. So I say, hey, owner of the building that is trying to lease space to me, how did you come across this camera? And he's like, that's one of our other tenants, 1 floor below. He actually just let us borrow it because he has no use for it.
Yep.
Okay, can I speak with this tenant? Because that's my property and it was stolen. Yeah, I can call him up. So he calls him up, doesn't tell him what's going on by my instruction. He comes up and he says, hey, man, what's going on? And I say, hey, how you doing? So I'm recording. Because remember, always be recording. Remember that. If you get one thing out of this today, always record. And we talked for about 30 minutes. And I'm just like, oh, man, yeah, cool. I see the camera up there. You selling it, blah, blah, blah. And we talk about it. And it turns out he runs a music shop in Dallas. And that is basically, whenever people come up and say, hey, I'm selling this for $100, $50, whatever, doesn't matter what it is, he'll buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'll resell it.
Of course.
So I said, that's stolen property, right? And he wanted to sell me my camera back to me.
No way.
He was like, $150, you can have it. It's yours. And I'm like, you're right, it's mine, but I'm not paying you any money for it. I'm going to go get it.
Right.
Right? So I take this 30-minute recording. I send it to DPD.
Yep.
No follow-up.
So you found the broker for the thief.
I found the industry killer.
Yeah.
I found the guy that takes cameras and lenses and all that stuff.
Yeah.
He's an industry killer. And I'm like, I got a lead for you, DPD. So I call, 30 calls, 30 days. Guess how many callbacks I got?
None.
0. At which point I just said, all right, if that's the case, I'm going to let DPD, deal with the continued crime in this area. So long. So that's my story of interacting with the police, because they are so efficient at returning people's stolen property by way of stealing more property. Oh, the end of the year is coming up, which means Q4 taxes estimates are about to be due as a business owner.
Yeah.
So I'm going to send them some more cash, to make sure that they can protect me
from being robbed.
Yeah.
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 And if you don't, they'll attack you. Don't forget that part.
And they'll condescend me on the phone.
The good guys, the protectors, will rob you. Will attack you for not robbing yourself.
It's stupid.
Participating in robbery.
It's stupid.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. That's terrible.
So, in the same way, Charlie DeDuff, he's going out and he's interviewing the people in Detroit, and he's like, so tell me what's going on. And they're like, my car was stolen this morning. You report it? Yeah. Did they come out? No. So, whenever a status is arguing, like, but who will protect my property?
Not them.
Not them.
Not the government.
Don't trust them.
We can prove it.
They are not good at that.
We have proof.
It's always interesting whenever somebody like has a conversation, because I talk with a lot of people about like anarchy and stuff like that, and they're like, "But what about the police? Like, who will pay for it?" And I'm like, "I would, but actual, but protection. Not the ones that we currently have." Yep. And I tell them about, because I now say that DPD owes me a refund whenever I'm talking with people. I'm like, yeah, the police actually owe me a refund. Why? Oh, then I tell them the whole story.
Yeah, they didn't do shit.
Right. Yeah. If only I could take my business elsewhere.
Like if Netflix doesn't let me watch Netflix movies for a month, I'm going to ask for a refund because they didn't do the job.
And that's like $8.
Yeah.
$8.
And you handed them the linchpin in the operation, and they didn't even call you back. You did the detective work for them. Good job. Yep. Freedom.
So,
all right.
Tell me about the internet, Patrick. Tell me all about it.
So we have done a grand total of probably 2.5 to 3 hours of net neutrality content on this channel. It was some of our first videos. They were kind of rough around the edges, but we made a really good case for years ago when this first came up, why net neutrality was a bad thing.
Why net neutrality is a good thing, because we want a neutral net.
Bad.
A good thing.
Bad.
What? How can you be against?
Net communism is what I call it.
How can you be against net neutrality, Patrick?
I know, exactly. And so I'm not going to spend too much more time on it, but I want to just bullet point it for you because it's come up again in the news, and there's a lot of people out there with a lot of well-intentioned, ignorant, begging for the government to grab onto another industry and take control of it. The internet is not a right. The internet is made up of mostly privately owned hardware that is interconnected just to make all of the little bits more useful as a whole, as a network together. It's not some utility. Even utilities shouldn't be regulated by the government, but it's not like something that somebody owes you. The ISP owners are not your slaves, and their property is not yours to control in the way that you want it. No one has the right to interfere in your decisions to peacefully contract with ISPs, with internet companies. No one has the right to interfere in the peaceful relationships a company has with its customers. If I want to get internet access that gives me things like Wikipedia and Khan Academy, but that limits social media and video streaming services in exchange for a drastically reduced cost, no one has the right to get in the way of that. Poor families may need that as their only option for their children. You don't have a lot of money to spend. You want to feed your family, but you also want to give your kids the benefit of the internet and all the learning that provides. Well, maybe an ISP could innovate in that area and differentiate themselves by the competition by offering ultra cheap internet that limits to educational sources. This net neutrality garbage would prevent that. It tries to communalize the internet. It tries to make it to where everyone must be equal on this thing that is anything but privately owned. Like, You have no right to tell the evil Eye of Sauron that is AT&T how to contract with you for internet. That said, the large ISPs have a near monopoly in this country, and that's what the pro net neutrality people are saying, right? Like, we only have two choices or one choice in our area, so we have to use government to prevent that one choice from giving us internet in a way that we don't like. Right?
How did that one choice come about, though?
Exactly. It's corporate collusion. It's corporatism. Many, if not all, ISPs collude with the government. They accept grant money for their infrastructure, which is just stolen money. They work with the government to create regulatory barriers to competition that keeps people from being able to compete with them, which lands you with only one or two choices in your area. They have a long corporatist history that began back in the telephone days. It's all immoral. The property that they bought with that stolen money is not rightfully owned by them. But the government's existence and regulatory powers, both at federal, state, and little tiny town level, they work with the ISPs. The ISPs will get in with a little township and say, we will pay for the infrastructure for your entire town if you give us exclusivity. So now there's a single internet service provider for a town, and they can do whatever they want for you. They can do whatever they want to you and to the internet that they offer, because you have no choice. Because government, not because evil ISP. So the solution is to not add more government control into the mix, creating more barriers to competition and interfering in the peaceful associations of customer and company. The solution is to get government all the way out. Make these fuckers compete with each other. No more local limits on which ISP choices you have. If your ISP slows down or blocks sites in a way that you don't like, the best way to discourage that is not through the always ineffective government regulations. You just give your business to somebody else. If your ISP starts blocking, I don't know, Alex Jones.
Gonna turn the frogs gay.
Yeah, just switch companies. Oh, but you can't. Well, why can't you? Because government. So stop running to government to solve the problem that running to government created.
Are there any examples of places that don't have net neutrality?
I saw a post by a dude in Poland. Let me read it. Here in Poland, we don't have net neutrality. Do they have internet?
I don't know. Is he posting on the internet to message?
So.
Uh-oh.
I think so.
I think he's a corporate shill.
And they also don't have the FCC. So I really don't know how they communicate with each other. Without the Federal Communications, what do they call it?
Charter? Commission?
How do they communicate? They don't have an FCC.
I'll Google it.
So no net neutrality, no FCC. They shouldn't be able to communicate at all. They should just basically be tapping out Morse code SOS signals to each other. Thanks. My screen switched. Okay. So he says, thanks to this, the ISPs are scared to death to jack up prices or throttle shit down just because of the huge amount of competition in the market. There are even small ISPs that provide the internet only for small communities or a few blocks. So the bigger ones know that if they jack up prices, you will just go to another. Thanks to that, I enjoy 100 meg download, 10 meg upload, no limit, no throttling, 120 HD cable channels, blah, 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 for $13 a month. If you want to get rid of the net neutrality, get rid of the FCC as well, which is the main source of monopolies. So there's your answer. Ta-da. You don't need net communism. You don't need more government in the freest thing, in the most powerful force for freedom the world has seen ever. You don't need more government. What's going on?
But what about net neutrality?
My net neutralness. Yeah. So the fear is that companies will charge you, what? You're going to have to pay $5 extra if you want Netflix.
More money for my internet?
Yeah.
Impossible.
Yeah. It's not your... The ISP owns millions and millions of dollars of infrastructure. You don't have no right.
Do they?
You have no right to the use of that.
Do they?
It's their property.
Do they?
It'd be like you coming into my house and telling me how I could or could not provide you access to my toilets. It's not your property.
Do you? Do I?
I don't know what you're saying anymore.
Are you?
But I control the toilets in this house.
Can I use your toilet later?
It's $4.99 extra. It's the upgrade package.
What do I get for that?
So net neutrality didn't exist a few years ago, and the internet was fine. Net neutrality no longer exists today, and magically you're able to watch this video.
Or are they?
I guess we'll see. If the view count remains 0, we'll know. Anyway, so that's the summary on net communism. That you could, if you want an in-depth, like hardcore talk through all the barriers to entry and competition, go look at the beginning of our channel, and it's going to be a little cringy, but there's a lot of information in there that's good.
I still send that out to people. I'm like, hey, people are asking about this net neutrality business. Just watch this. Yeah. The first 10 or 15 minutes is like a discussion of what it is, and then the remainder is like commentary on what that means for both sides of the playing field.
Yep, much shorter facial hair right here. Back in the day.
I'm working on it. Okay. So, do they really own their infrastructure? Do you own your body? Do I own my body? Is there anything else you want to say on this before I move on?
No, go for it.
Good. John Stossel has a good question for you.
Who owns your body? I would think you do. And given that, don't you have a right to rent your body to someone else?
So, this is a big question. Who owns your body? Patrick, who owns your body?
I own this one.
How do you know?
No one else has exclusive control over it. I got here first.
I got here first. My brain is inside this meat sack. That's interesting. It's always interesting whenever people are like, you don't own your body. Well, but you're debating with me. Like, there's an implicit agreement that you own your body, you own your argument. Like, all of this stuff is implicit in just the very act of opening your mouth to communicate to somebody.
If you don't own it, who does? And how did someone else come to ownership of your body?
How? So, John Stossel poses this question. Who owns your body? And if it is in fact you, as he supposes all this belligerently, do you have the right, the ability to rent it out in sex work?
Whoa!
So we're going to hear from someone who says, no, you can't.
Julie Bindel runs a group that wants to end all prostitution.
This is about the inside of your body being a workplace.
So that's Julie Bindel. She's the author of The Pimping of Prostitution.
Subverted.
Does she look familiar to you, Patrick?
She has been on a previous video on this channel.
I have that video right here. Here's a quick excerpt of that. Prepare yourself, everybody. Now remember, she wants to ban all prostitution. That language is key. Here we go.
Marriage is an institution that has curtailed women's freedom for centuries. But instead of rejecting the patriarchal and outdated tradition, some feminists have decided to reclaim it. We may have progressed since the Industrial Revolution, where Mary Wollstonecraft described marriage as little more than a state of legal prostitution. But let's not kid ourselves. Even today, marriage is not about equality. It's about perpetuating male privilege.
Now, remember that this is the woman who wants to do away with all forms of prostitution.
Yep.
She says marriage is a form of legal prostitution.
Yep.
And she's in a video where she says women shouldn't get married. Or at the very least, it is not a feminist act. It's promoting the patriarchy.
Well, at least she's consistent, right?
She's consistently an asshole.
She's against marriage because it's prostitution, and she's against prostitution.
Because it's prostitution.
Because she just, she wants to control how a bunch of women use their bodies.
Yeah, so I guess we really need to watch the next clip before we can kind of digress into this. But I think just before we go any further, I own my body. I can do whatever I want with it, including, renting it out to, if anybody's into this. Anyway.
No, but the moral judgments are aside. We're having like a legal discussion of, well, it's not aside, actually. It's like, is it immoral to use your body how you want? Maybe or maybe not.
You tell me.
This is really hard to talk when you're making googly faces. No,
go ahead, Patrick.
I'm gonna puke. I'm standing in like a foot of
I was
puke
hoping I was
right
going to
now.
get a tip at the end of this broadcast.
It's up
now
to
there's no money coming in.
It's up to
I'm
my
going to have to
knees.
sell myself as a prostitute. Now we got a problem.
All right, so there's a difference between is something immoral and is something a good idea that you should be friends with. Like, if a person does a crap load of drugs and alcohol, is doing drugs and alcohol immoral? Absolutely not. It's their body. They can do what they want to it as long as they're not hurting anybody else. Is it necessarily still a good thing that you would want someone addicted to those things in your life? Probably not. That's probably not good.
Probably dangerous.
So my point is, and I'm not making a moral judgment on prostitution right now. My point is that the not moral judgment, aesthetics is what I call it. I'm not making an aesthetic judgment on prostitution right now. I'm just saying that it's separate from the ethics of it.
People can't point guns at people for doing what they want with their body that is not harming another body without their consent.
You may not attack people for not hurting anyone, yes.
That would be a consistent position. So here's the Stossel man. The Stossel man brings in the question.
Why should it be illegal to sell something that's legal to give away?
So a mother might decide to save her child's life. She will give that child a kidney, right? It's a bit different from having to sell it and somebody buying it on the open market.
Why? Because money's involved? That makes it so terrible?
Because it's about the human body being a marketplace.
Well, isn't it? Boxers make money with their bodies. So do dancers, models, football players.
Interesting parallel he draws here by saying all of these uses of the body are uses of the body. There is no false division between them.
No one has the right to tell you how to use your property unless you're using it to hurt someone else.
Most intriguing assertion.
I don't know why this is so difficult for the general public to get. You got to leave people alone unless they're hurting you. It's so simple. It's like second grader. You can't hit somebody for not behaving the way you want them to.
But I don't want my kids to see that.
Then keep your kids away from it.
Oh, that's an interesting solution that doesn't require people with guns pointing them at somebody and threatening to put them inside of a cage whenever you don't agree with the life choices that somebody's made.
Yep.
Interesting. Here's an example of somebody whose life choices you may or may not agree with.
I am a hooker.
Proudly you say it.
Very much so.
How can you be proud?
When people say, aren't you embarrassed to be a prostitute? I say no. I used to waitress and get hit on and provide conversation. And that's kind of what I do now, except I'm serving sex and not food.
People say this is degrading.
How is that degrading? Or rather, who is it degrading for? Because she's getting paid a lot of money. That feels good. That doesn't feel degrading. And he's getting his needs met. So I always wonder, who is it degrading for?
That's a great question to ask.
It's almost like free market transactions are win-win.
She's getting a lot of money, and that feels good, and he's getting his needs met.
His needs met.
So who's getting degraded here?
Yeah.
I think I have the answer on who is actually being degraded.
Okay.
Ba, 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 ba. Right there. She grumpy. I'm not playing a clip.
Oh,
We've already seen the clip. Nope, not playing a clip. Just showing you who's being degraded.
Grumpy face, okay.
Yeah, she's just grumpy. She's just kind of grumpy.
Maybe she's upset that, never mind.
She's just grumpy.
Yep.
So, I think it's important, not because I think everybody ought to go out and be a prostitute. That's not what I'm calling for. But what I am calling for is for people to stop pointing guns at people whenever they disagree with somebody's life choices.
Yep.
You know, people say they want to live in peace and harmony all the days, and then, you know, but at the same time, people are like, what was there was somebody who had like an offensive sign on the back of their truck, and they're like, we need to get the sheriffs out here because I don't want my kids to see that. It was like, well, if you don't want your kids to see that, don't show them it.
Yeah. You don't have to agree with other people's behavior. You just have to not attack them for it.
Yeah, like right now you're wearing a shirt that says geek. What if I was really offended as a nerd by you saying geek?
Yeah, I mean, all you'd have to do is make a pragmatic case that I'm somehow hurting society, and then you could rob people to attack me to prevent me from wearing it.
It's violence.
Yeah.
I have the right to self-defense because what you're doing right now, Patrick, that is violence.
I'm calling everyone else stupid because I'm a geek or something. Yeah.
It's violence. Anyway, so that's pretty much my whole story on prostitution. I didn't think I'd ever have that conversation with somebody. Like, whenever I was born and whenever I became sentient, whenever, in the span in between, I was never like, I think one day I'll be on YouTube talking about how people ought to be able to be prostitutes morally. I never thought that would happen in my life, but here I am doing that. That's kind of weird.
Surprise.
It's weird how life does that to
Freedom.
you. What has surprised you lately, Patrick?
Stefan Molyneux.
What about Stefan Molyneux?
As I call him now, Molyneux.
Molyneux?
Yeah. Stefan Molyneux.
What?
I feel that this message is an important one for me to put on this channel because my very first video on this channel, I don't even know if it's there anymore actually, was defending Molyneux on somebody attacked him or something. So
the Thunderfoot one?
Yeah,
it's there.
Are you sure?
Maybe.
Anyway, so I have been, in the past, I've been a very ardent follower of Stefan Molyneux. He has done great things for me. So I need to put out, this is a statement from me because he's gone in new directions. So I would like to publicly renounce, denounce, and call out Stefan Molyneux for what he has become, and the immoral ends justify breaking the nap relativism and pragmatism path he's taken thousands of good people down. Stefan's older content has had a permanent positive effect on every relationship in my life and the lives of my children, and will continue to do so for the rest of my existence and that of my entire future family tree. However, one of the lessons he taught over the years was to think critically and rationally, to not take people's word for conclusions, including his own. To do my own research and thinking. It is that, coupled with the innumerous lessons he used to teach that defeat his current positions, that I must break with him and recommend that you do as well. He has ceded the moral high ground of voluntarism and devolved into nationalistic minarchism. He's now a fat man trying to sell a diet book. Quote, initiation of force is always wrong, except when he personally predicts it will result in a better outcome. He even wrote a book detailing why that logic is invalid and wrong. It's called Universally Preferable Behavior. If you disagree with me, if you think I have it wrong, if you have an argument you think I need to hear, please contact me. You have an open invitation to join me on the show for a calm, rational discussion on the topic.
And rational.
Rational too. Some people have been disparaging libertarians for being too much of a debate club. You know who you are. But healthy debate is exactly what can prevent and limit the damage people like Molyneux and Christopher Chase Rachels and Cantwell and Hoppe can do when they get something wrong. Not everyone wants to be or can be a thought leader, so it's important that the ones that do and are wrestle with each other's ideals. I hope one day Stefan returns to a path of non-aggression. I would delight in retracting this statement. Until then, I think we got to forge on without him.
Patrick?
Yes?
That's not an argument.
Yeah, I know.
So, just so we have it out there, in the sphere, can you articulate an argument?
Yeah, sure. He supported electing someone that will create and or strengthen state borders, national borders around the United States to prevent what he would call welfare recipient foreigners from coming into the country, and increasing the taxation that feeds welfare, as well as changing the culture into one that he believes will not create fertile soil for liberty-related ideas to grow in. How did I do?
I just think it's important to have that out there because I have a feeling, which is not an argument, that very quickly we will have a lot of not an argument.
Oh yeah, it's like the first thing the Wallenites will reply in the comments. Not an argument, not an argument, not an argument. The argument is very cleanly and clearly that building a wall on the border does not filter out the people that are initiating force. It blocks everyone, and it initiates force on everyone that wants to peacefully travel, including myself.
And me, if I want to go south a couple hundred miles. Can't do it.
It happened to us.
Can't do it.
Yep. We were just traveling.
We were detained.
We were traveling to Arizona. We weren't leaving the country.
We were coming back from Arizona, actually.
Well, yeah, both ways.
Both ways, yeah. But on the way back, we were detained.
Yeah, dogs sniffed the car. You know, if we had resisted,
they said they were going to fingerprint you.
Yeah,
if we're going to pull you out of this car and fingerprint you, and you're like, you're going to do what?
If we had resisted, it would have escalated to deadly force. And when you call for that initiation of force on peaceful people, you are calling for evil. You're calling for immorality. That is a breach of the non-aggression principle. You cannot do that and then call yourself an ethical person. And that's the mistake. You know, he might have plenty of justifications. We got to reduce welfare because welfare is theft and is, you know, a breach of the NAP itself. Yeah, sure. So call for the end of welfare. Don't call to attack other peaceful people to prevent other immoral people from increasing an already bad problem.
Ethics first.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that matters.
So that is an argument.
That is.
You don't get to attack peaceful people to reduce immorality. You don't get to attack peaceful people to reduce other initiation of force. You don't get to initiate force to reduce initiation of force.
If you could, if that was moral, then the state would be completely justified.
Yeah.
There would be no reason to rail against the state in any manner.
That's everything. That's taxation. That's
all of it.
Everything we've been talking about here today. Yeah.
It's for the infrastructure.
We
it's
must
for the
tax
cancer research.
Cigarettes must cost $13 because we have to stop the initiation of force when people get sick from cancer.
We must take your money in order to protect your property from people, not including us, but mostly people that we will not track down at least 4 hours after the event.
Yes. Yeah. You have to universalize these rules. Molyneux taught me that. He's the one that taught me to take someone's principles, take somebody's language and ideas, extract the principles from them, and see if they are universalizable. He taught me that.
You want to pull up, I can pull up UPB if you want. If you want to talk about that. They got a nice little appendix in there, Appendix B.
Uh-oh.
Moral theories that are supported by logic and evidence are true. All other moral theories are false. Okay? So kind of like we have the physics... the scientific method applied to physics gets us like things like the law of gravity. In the same way, if we apply the scientific method to ethics, we get things like you own your body, you own the effects of your body. No one can take that which is yours without your consent. If there is a gun in the room, consent is not possible. So whenever it comes to the wall, the border, do I consent to it? No, I don't. Boom. Now, if somebody builds a border and does not let people come through, and they use my resources to do it, it's immoral. That's a consistent position. If I said, well, like, Patrick, do you consent to me building a border around your house?
Absolutely not.
A really, really tall border that you can't scale over?
Hell no.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do that anyway because I believe that you ought to be contained because you're a cultural miscreant.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
That's a... What's the word?
I'm one of those guys that like Star Wars.
It's a... It's a bullshit, inconsistent position. I cannot hold that. That cannot be considered valid because it's internally inconsistent.
Well, you don't own the land either.
That's why it's internally inconsistent.
Yeah.
Because for me to do that, I would have to say I have exclusive use, control, and rights to build on the land that I call yours.
But let's even accept that ad arguendo for a moment. Let's accept that Kaysen owns a strip of land completely encircling America. Okay. And you decide to build a wall on your rightfully owned land with your own resources.
With my own resources.
You're not even stealing for me to build this wall.
Oh, man, this is never going to happen in reality.
I'm giving you every benefit of the doubt. It's your land.
Okay, yep.
It's your wall.
Yep.
It's all rightfully done, peacefully done. You're not aggressing against anyone to build this wall.
Yep.
The moment that wall goes up, you've created a lot of prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
You have imprisoned and controlled access to my rightfully owned property inside of that wall.
Kind of like if I did it around your house, it would be immoral to do.
Exact same scenario.
The only difference is that it's bigger, and then ethics reverse whenever it gets bigger.
Even if you had the right, you owned it, you paid for it yourself. If everything was kosher in that, which does not exist at the state level, at the federal level.
If everyone,
it's still wrong.
If everyone in America wanted that, 100%, 100.00%.
Yep.
It would be ethical.
100%.
If it's 99.99999%, unethical.
Unethical.
Immoral.
Yep.
Evil.
Yep. Unless that one person was somehow magically allowed to just cross the border unfettered, and people were allowed to come and go to that guy's house that he wanted to come and go. That would be the only way it would work. But that would be impossible, because walls aren't like... internet filters where you can specify very fine grained rules.
I was thinking platform 9 3/4 out of Harry Potter, where they run at the wall and they go through.
And the okay ones are allowed to just magically pass through the wall.
Yeah. And the other ones, they're like Ron and Harry in the second one, where they just like smash against the wall, and it's like, you gotta drive a car.
Yeah. So there's no lever you can pull at the government level to control who passes through the borders to make sure that you only aggress. Because I'll admit that someone coming into this country for the purposes of accepting welfare, accepting stolen money, is unethical. That is immoral. You're taking my money.
Can we stop
that?
them?
I haven't consented.
Can we stop those people?
Absolutely. I don't know
what?
I don't know who we is, but
can you?
But
can Patrick?
I could. That's an initiation of force.
So why can't we do it then? Why can't we build the wall?
Because, like I said, there's no lever that you can pull that magically only attacks, only aggresses against those people that are coming here for welfare.
But what if it's 99%?
It's all or nothing.
What if it's like a lot of them, more than native-born?
It's even me. I'm not even trying to cross the border. We just get too close to it, and men with guns point them at us.
But Patrick,
yeah, doesn't work. I don't consent.
Western civilization.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
We need it.
You cannot. The non-aggression principle, which Molyneux was a big part of teaching me, says that you can't initiate force on peaceful people.
I think this is as good a place of any to end our show for the day.
Yep.
Anything you want to add?
No, that's it.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Until next time, I'm Kason.
Oh, I'm Patrick.
And we will see you next time.